where my artwork was, and that client is standing there in front of an oil painting crying. And was like, okay, you want them to have that emotion. You want them to be into that, such as the trees. I paint all the branches just so the leaves hang on correctly. And my
Right.
son was like, why do you do all that work and then, you're just covering it up? Why don't As I was painting, because I painted all the time, and I decided to call myself painter of creation. Once I became a full-time artist, galleries wanted oils because they could get more money for
For
oil.
oil. Hi there, I'm April Paige, breaking down the what, when, where, and how creatives get their inspiration. I'm a big fan of the cursey words, and I've been a creative for 30 plus years in marketing and fine art. This is where creatives unite to break down the facts of creative life. Buckle up, let's get lost in the world of creativity together. Welcome, everyone, to Artist Antics with April, where we talk to creatives about creativity. And today I am very excited to sit down and talk to fine artist Bonnie Brooks. She merged her love of the arts and her love of the Lord and his creations and turning that into her purpose. And she has been an artist for 40 plus years. Bonnie creates beautiful oil paintings, oil pastels, acrylic paintings, watercolor, as well as prints and NFTs. Originally from Michigan and now resides in Raleigh, North Carolina. At a young age, she was told she had a gift for the arts. She then began school with a heavy focus on arts and excelled through middle school, high school, and college. Bonnie has a master's in the arts from Wayne State University and received the Raleigh Medal of the Arts. She has many, many awards, gallery showings, and publications she's been featured in. She is certified as a teacher and has taught art for many years. And with the help of her son, she saw the opportunity to create community and impact through NFTs. She is the host of Twitter's Christian NFT Lounge, where people come to talk about the love of Christ and how we were created to create, has become a space of healing and a space of comfort for others to share their stories and testimonies. Welcome, Bonnie. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much. I am just honored to be here and talking to you about everything. It's just so exciting. It's an exciting time. I mean, things are changing all the time in the arts, and
Yeah.
you gotta flow with it.
Yeah, for sure, or be left behind. So, I read that your mom took you to many galleries at a young age, and my first question is just, how did you where did the spark come for the love of creation? So I love hearing that initial spark of creating story. So, yeah, I'd just love you to share with us.
So I've always done art, and in third grade, yeah, my mom took me to all the museums and everything because my dad was sleeping. He worked nights, and so she had
Had
to
to
keep
get
us
out of the
quiet
house.
basically. It was all about getting us out of the house.
Yeah.
Yeah, but where I was going to school, they tested you on your aptitude, and we were in New York. We moved every 3 years or so, but we were in New York at the time, and they sent me to the University of Buffalo to take my art classes, and so that's really, really where it started. But you know, I became a Christian after college. It wasn't all growing up, but I became a Christian after college, and as I was painting, because I painted all the time, and I decided to call myself painter of creation
Mm,
because I don't create a tree. God created a tree. I don't create the water. And so I'm pretty much a landscape artist when it comes to my oils. I do abstract acrylics also. But I was painting his creations. I wasn't creating those myself.
yeah.
I don't create a tree.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. Yeah, and I mean, I think we artists all get inspired from the world around us, and nature has always been, a big topic with many of the artists I've talked to, and um, speaking of that, so when you sit down to decide, I love to hear how you determine what you're going to paint. Like, is it from a place you've visited, or something you actually saw or and took a picture of, or is it a merge of your memory and something real or reference pieces. I just love to hear that.
My realistic artworks all come from I've visited all these places.
Mm,
Sometimes I sit for hours and hours and I take photographs all day long so I can get my lighting right in the studio. My paintings, such as the trees, I paint all the branches just so the leaves hang on correctly. And my
right.
son was like, why do you do all that work and then, you're just covering it up. Why don't you just do the leaves? But to me, I need to get them hanging on the tree correctly.
Yeah.
So
Gives
I,
you reference. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so I take lots and lots of photographs just so I can get my lighting, everything correct.
Mm,
And then I merge those together. And I literally, I use an iPad now
mhm.
with my photographs so I can enlarge, so I can see every little detail as I'm painting. It takes me, I paint an inch an hour with my realistics, and it takes me anywhere from, 6 months to a year and a half or 2 years to finish a
Wow.
realistic painting, depending on how large it is also.
Right. Well, it's very, very detailed. I love your, mill paintings and the bridges and the, dock, one on a lake with a dock. I love all that structure along with nature. It's just so beautiful. Um, so do you use it in your digital reference? Do you use any software to merge, your photos or anything like that? Or you're just taking the straight photos and blowing them up so you can see closer and not altering them in any way?
I don't alter them in any
Okay.
way. No,
Very good.
I just work from the photos themselves.
Awesome. So when you started to become a professional artist, because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you were teaching first and then became an artist. Yeah. So talk to us because I like to try to tell everyone that's listening how it's not so scary to become an artist. So why and how did you get started creating professionally and what did that look like for you? Yeah.
So I was teaching at the time, and we're artists no matter what, no matter what we're doing, right?
Yeah,
We're all created to create. I
that's
mean,
right.
if we're created in the image of God, He's the great creator, and we're all created to create something, whether it's, music or whatever it is.
That's it.
But um,
What did you go through when you were initially becoming a professional, like, your mental space, or was there any challenges there, or, how did the first few steps look like when you got started?
So I was teaching, obviously, because I like to eat. And you can't just jump right into it. You have
Yeah.
to build a body of work.
Yep.
It's not like
True.
something you can just, okay, here's a painting, let me sell it. I mean, that works for some people, but not so much for me. And I was doing a lot of shows while I was teaching, and I was entering group shows and doing artist markets and all kinds of different things, because as an artist you have to be able to do a lot of different things to maintain. You have to sell your artwork, sell prints, do shows, do gallery exhibits. I just hung a gallery exhibit in a coffee shop last night. You just want to get your artwork out there no matter where you can.
Yeah.
I was also the vice president of the Visual Art Exchange and trying to help other artists do the same thing. And
Mhm.
so entering different shows, I just entered so many different shows. And then I was literally in Europe at the time, and I was nominated for the Raleigh Medal of Arts. And I was like, well, I'm in Europe. I'm not
Yeah.
going to get it anyway, right? Well, I got it. And so I'm flying back, writing my speech on the airplane.
Oh, boy.
And that was a pivotal moment in my life. That was where, because I was doing the art shows, I was living as an artist, but I was also teaching.
Yeah.
But that was when I decided to quit teaching and enter life as a full-time artist
Mm.
right after that, because I thought, well, if I'm going to make it, I'm going to make it now, because my name's been out there so much. So that's when I put up my first. website
Mhm.
in the 90s, believe
Yeah,
it or
yeah,
not, the early 90s, and just started working as an artist and just getting my work out there. It's just about getting your work out there, getting
true.
seen.
It's true.
Also, you need to get your story out there too
You
about,
know, that's a really good point you're making because I think 50% of it in my mind, I don't know if you agree, is about the story of who you are, why you're doing what you're doing. Because people, when they buy your art, they want that story behind what it meant to you, how you got it to paint that subject or topic, who you are as an artist. But I think too, and correct me if you think otherwise, but I think they're also buying into who you are as a person. Yeah.
well, it never used to be like that.
Yeah.
Back when I first started, the galleries definitely kept you away from the clients. And
Mm,
they didn't, back then, nobody knew who the artist was.
right.
When you were selling your work in different
Yep.
places, nobody knew who the artist was. And that has changed. And I think it's changed because of NFTs, because typically people buy NFTs because they know the artist, they know who they are, they know their story. And I think that has evolved with the art world, with Sotheby's, with Christie's. Everything has changed where people want to know who the artist is. They want to know where this came from. They want to know the story behind it.
Yeah.
And so that is all new.
Yeah.
That's changed over, I would say, the past 10 years.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that 100%. And since you've already gone there, I wanted to talk about NFTs and start with, can you explain to the audience what that is, non-fungible tokens, and then how that relates to your art and the community that you're building?
So a non-fungible token, let me explain what a fungible token is first. A fungible token is if you have a $10 bill and I have two fives, we can exchange those and it's fungible. They're the
Yeah.
same value. A
Right.
non-fungible token cannot be exchanged, such as artwork. It's a one-of-a-kind thing. And it's much like if you think of trading cards, remember the baseball cards, and
That's
I
right.
found those are still popular, baseball cards, whatever, the trading cards and collecting beanie babies or whatever it is. That's kind of sort of what an NFT is. It's a collectible item that is sold,
Digital. Yeah, and
that
it's
is
digital.
digital, right?
Yep.
And like
Hmm.
this painting behind me here, I made this into an NFT, but I animated it. So the water's running.
Oh,
And
neat.
so you can hear the wheels turning in the mill,
Very cool.
and you can hear the sounds of the water on the NFT.
And how would somebody use that in when they purchase it as an art lover? Like, what would they do with that?
So there are digital NFT frames. Some are as big as a picture frame,
Mhm,
and some are as large as a giant size TV or even larger. There's
mhm.
companies that I'm with one company right now where they lease your artwork, your NFT artworks, and they lease your artworks in huge businesses, big displays, giant. I mean, when I was in New York last year, there's huge giant display. I can't even tell you how big it was. Like even in Times Square, I had my artwork in Times Square, and you can see it moving. You can see it
Right.
doesn't even have to be moving. Not all my NFTs move. I don't animate all of them, no way. But it's just a collectible. And how I got into it, it was so interesting was that my son was day trading crypto.
Mm.
And he came over and he said, Mom, in order to stay relevant as an artist, you need to do NFTs. I didn't even know what they were. I was like,
Good for your
okay,
son.
what are they? Exactly. So he
Yeah.
set me up with all my securities on my computer with my wallets.
Wallet, yep. Mhm.
Wallets. Um, there's two kinds of wallets. There's a I explain it to people. There's a hard wallet and a soft wallet. A soft wallet is your purse that you carry your money in,
Yep.
and a hard wallet is the bank
Yeah.
so that it can't be taken or anything. So your cryptocurrency cannot be stolen or anything like that. And so, he set me up with all of it, my hard wallets, my soft wallets, and all my computer stuff. And I said, okay, now what do I do? He's like, oh, well, I don't know anything about NFTs. I just know you need to do it. So I researched it, right? I
Right.
researched it for 6 months. And once I found out that Christie's house and
Oh,
the
yeah.
The
Yeah,
Louvre
they're all
Gallery
doing
is
it.
even doing NFTs. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah,
Yeah.
I need to
Is
do this then.
yeah, for sure, and, who knows where it's gonna go, but, interesting that you can lease, I didn't know that. That's, interesting spin. It's almost like, when I was working with stagers in Tampa, they would rent my painting to put into whatever, house or apartment or condo they were trying to sell, and then they'd pay for that rental and I'd get the original back. So it sounds similar to that. Yeah.
It is exactly like that. It's
Yeah.
exactly like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So that's cool. So in creating NFTs and tying that to the community that you're building, how does that work? And how is that affecting, your community build?
Community is vital in the art world now. I mean,
Mm,
whether it's original artwork or NFTs, community is vital. Just like where I met you,
yep.
community is vital in connecting with one another. Artists are no longer alone. I mean,
Yeah,
we used to be alone in our studios and
that's
nobody
right.
knew.
Yep.
But community is huge. And so when I first got into NFTs, I got into a Facebook community. And it was so funny. I was in there for like 3 weeks and they all of a sudden made me a moderator. And I'm like, wait, I've only been in NFTs 3 weeks. And they said,
Right.
that's a lot longer than most people because I've been into NFTs for 3.5 years now.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, that's longer than most people that have been into NFTs. And so I learned so much from community. I learned how to do NFTs from a Korean man on YouTube. He was
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, everything's done on YouTube now. I use it every day almost, yeah.
But he would, I mean, I would message him. I
Mm.
mean, he had 30,000 followers. His NFTs were selling for huge dollars. Let's put it this way. He bought land and built a new house. And his NFTs, he's a photographer, were selling for huge amounts. And I would message him, and within 24 hours, he would message me back.
Bring you back,
And
yeah,
I'm
that's
like,
great.
I want to be just like that.
Yeah.
I want to be able to help people just like that. I
Mm.
mean, he helped me so much. And so Twitter or X, I call it X Twitter.
Yeah, we all know what it is, yeah.
So that's where you get into communities with NFTs and your artwork. And I was in a painters group, an NFT painters group, and we exchanged ideas, how to photograph your work to make an NFT
Oh, great.
and
I need
different
to get
platforms.
those groups from you, like, we'll put that, for everybody listening, I'll get that from you, and if you don't mind, I'll put it in the description, and, so we can share it with everybody, but go ahead, talk about your group, your NFT
Yeah,
group.
so my Twitter handle is Brooks Gallery One. Everything's Brooks Gallery for me, so it makes it
Okay.
easy across all platforms. I'm
Platforms, yep.
Brooks Gallery, no matter what platform I'm on, I'm Brooks Gallery. Because I did have my own physical gallery here in Wake Forest for a while. And then the economy tanked in 2008 and I wanted to eat, again.
Yeah.
So so I went back to teaching and then I left teaching again and now I'm a full-time artist again. But community is everything. I
Yeah.
mean, we have our Twitter space. It's live. It's a live Twitter space that we meet at and we we meet once a week. I had the Twitter space twice a week. I still do it twice a week, but I turned one into a Bible study now instead of just doing the NFT
Teas, yeah.
lounge
Yeah.
every twice a week.
Yep.
And the reason for that is because having it twice a week was because I had to have one in the morning and one in the evening in order because you're all over the world,
Right,
over the
time
world.
zones, yeah, it's really yeah, I've had a lot of that too, where working with trying to coordinate times has been tricky sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
My first NFT artist that I really connected with, he was in Singapore. So it was really difficult because we had a 12-hour time difference. And so that's why I had the two spaces, was for time difference with people from all over the world. And it was a huge aha moment because it was like, the scripture, go into all the world.
Mm.
I'm now in all the world. I have friends from Nigeria.
No, that's
It doesn't
awesome.
it doesn't matter. I have people from all over the world that come into my space, and it's so much fun.
Fun, yeah, no, I love I'm not as, expanded as you are right now, but I'm hoping to be now that we're connected, and but, just, meeting all the artists in 6 degrees of separation from, getting people's names from everybody I know and love and work with and previously work with and family members, friends, it's just been really interesting how I'm getting connected with people and it is, a lot of them are in all different countries. So I'm just really enjoying like learning from everybody because I do learn in every conversation. I learned something. So it's just been amazing. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you can learn from a 6-year-old. I had a 6-year-old
Yeah.
tell me a better way of teaching a lesson, and he was right. I was like, okay, you're right. That works better.
Yeah, I did, some classes with Montessori students and, just volunteering, and, yeah, they teach me every time, something that I'm just like, "Well, okay, we could do it that way, I never thought of that," you know? And, done, just several classes with the orphan shelter with my mom and, yeah, we just enjoy it. Just the kid energy is so great and their minds are so free, unlike, our programmed minds as adults. They're just like, "Why can't we do something crazy?" So it's really great to learn from them. Um so, speaking of that kin energy and how important is experimentation and play in your work? Like, are you strictly just realism or I know you're working with your abstracts, so I assume, that's kind of your play. But just curious, like, how important is that? And do you set time aside to experiment and play? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I definitely do. My realistics are so focused that I need a break from
Right.
them. And so, and I do watercolors also, but once I became a full-time artist, galleries wanted oils because they could get more money for
For
oil.
oils, yep.
Because my undergraduate was all watercolors, and that's what I did mostly was watercolors. My graduate, I did oils. And so I'm like, I can paint in anything you want me to paint in. So that was my attitude. You want oils? I'll paint in oils. It doesn't matter to me. I can paint in anything you want me to paint in. You know, like you said, I do pastels and everything.
Yeah,
But um my son likes abstracts, and I'm like, I can paint anything, right?
right.
And so that's where the experiment comes in because I truly pray over my work. I
Oh, that's
put praise
wonderful.
and worship music on. I blast it so loud that I just want it to be in me because I want my work to resonate with people, to flow with the Holy Spirit. And just, it's so funny because sometimes I'll think, okay, I got to quit. You know, when you have to quit, it's like, okay,
Yes.
I'm messing up. I'm not
Yeah,
liking this. And I leave. And sometimes I come back the next day and I went, oh God, you did a good job there. You changed that, didn't you? I swear
yeah.
he changes it. But with my abstracts, I have to flow with the Holy Spirit even more than my
Mm,
realistics. My realistics, I'm looking at something. But my abstracts, I'm not. I'm not looking at anything, and it has to flow from me. Because
mm,
sometimes I'm using over, especially my larger pieces, I'm using over a gallon of paint
yeah.
on that canvas at a time, and I move it with a palette knife. And so it's a whole different feeling, controlling.
Yeah.
I have to release that control. There's a lot of
It's
that control is totally gone.
it's
So
interesting.
yeah, I go
Yeah.
from control to no control.
Right. Well, that's the paradigm, there. The ironic part of it is you're going from none to all. And it's funny because I'm trying to incorporate some energy into my new style, which I haven't revealed yet because my paintings to me now are pretty flat. And so I'm trying to get energy into it. And there's a razor's edge there with knowing the technique and, color and composition and perspective, all the things, right, that you learn in art school. But being able to let go is a whole nother thing, right? So, and I had a hard time with that in the beginning because I was like, what do you mean you just want me to throw paint on there? I can't do that. It just felt wrong. And my art mentor was like, "You need to just relax and get yourself out of your own way." And I was like, "How do I do that? I don't even know how to mentally do that." But I think what happened for me, and I don't know if this happened for you, I'd love to hear, is, I started doing it on less critical paper that I didn't have a lot of money into. Like some of these canvases, are extremely expensive, and I didn't want to play on something like that. So I got some boards and some even the kid rolls, that you kids roll out on a table and
Mhm.
has a little holder or whatever. I started doing some of that just to loosen myself up, because I was so adverse to doing that in the beginning. And so now I'm trying to find a happy medium, that fine line between them both. But I'd love to hear, like, what was that when you first started doing abstracts? Did you have similar experience or was it different?
So I have a story for you now that you said that about you.
Yeah.
When I was in my undergraduate, my watercolor professor, I was painting very detailed, very not because you
Yeah.
layer and layer and layer, and I just build up layers, and I do it with my oils too. And he took my painting, he threw it in the sink, and he scrubbed it, and he handed it back to me soaking wet, and said, "Try again.
Oh my god.
You
I had
need
a
to lose."
very similar experience. So I was painting this cow with my art professor and in class, and I was so proud of this cow because the perspective was the nose was really big and I was getting all the texture on the actual skin of the nose and, like, hairs, little hairs. And I was so proud, and I got the fence in perspective with the trees in background, and it's hard when it's that close up to get the perspective right, so I was just really pleased with how it was going, and he came up and just took the paintbrush, went all over it. I go, and he goes, "Now what are you gonna do?" And I was like, "Oh my god, I wanna stab you with this paintbrush right now." Yeah. But,
Yeah.
they're just challenging us to get out of that
Mhm.
mental space, but in a really, abrupt way to get you to click over, so to speak. Yeah, but how did you take that when what did you do after he got rid of your painting in the sink?
I I just sat there in awe going, "Okay, now what do I do?" And the whole class is looking at you too, right?
Yeah, oh
And
yeah, of
so
course
I'm
they
like,
are. It's making an
"Okay,
example,
now what I
yeah.
do?" And, I couldn't work on that wet piece of paper that he threw in the sink, so I just got another piece of paper out and started again.
Did you do something similar, or was it totally different then?
Well, he really did get me to loosen up. He was an amazing professor.
Yeah.
He did get me to loosen up in my watercolors where they would flow. I still do the realistic watercolors that have lots of layers, but then I can also do the other where I will wet a whole area and dab the paint in so it can be allowed to flow.
Right.
But I'm
I
still
love
concerned a
that. I
little
just
there
saw
because I
something.
have only that one area wet, so it can only flow in that one area.
Yeah, I just saw something on my feed, actually, I think it was this morning, where a watercolorist, puts the, image or the shape in water only on the page, and then brings the paintbrush and just touches it, and then it all comes
Right.
into, to view, and it was just the coolest thing, and I thought, "Wow, I wonder how I can incorporate that into what I'm doing just to have some happy accidents, because 'cause I'm trying to get that space in what I'm doing to allow the magic to happen.
Mhm.
So, if I'm, so tied to the realism of it all that I'm not putting the energy in on it, then but I see energy on your pieces, with like the water flowing behind you, for example. That's energy to me.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I'm just in this weird space of trying to figure that out right now. Mhm.
Well, with the abstracts, like I said, I put a lot of paint on the canvas before I start.
Oh,
And sometimes that's not a good thing.
yeah.
So I'll put a base layer down first, and I'll put it very, very thick, a base layer down first. And I add I add I add an agent to my acrylics so that it won't dry.
Yeah.
So I
Medium, yeah.
because
Mhm.
that's I never used to paint in acrylics because, I'm used to painting in oils and they
Yeah.
didn't dry that fast. And acrylics to me dried really, really fast.
Yep.
I mean, when I traveled Europe and I painted in the streets, I did use acrylic then, but they just dried too fast for me. And now there's so many. Back then there wasn't products like
Yeah.
we have now.
Yeah.
There's so many different products so that the paint won't dry.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
so that's what I love now, and that's why I can put a thick layer down first.
Mm.
And then I put layers upon that. I'm still
Yeah.
layering, you see.
Yeah.
I got
Yeah.
that layering thing's never gonna leave me,
Well,
right?
it gives you depth, yeah. You have to
Right,
layer, it gives you depth. Yep.
right.
Mhm.
So then I put layers of paint on it, and then I've learned to push the under coating on
Uh-huh.
top of that, and then use my palette knife to pull it all back out together.
Interesting. Oh,
So
I like this idea. I'm gonna have to try that.
I did one painting, and because I had so much paint on it, I
Mhm.
came back the next day and it had run off all the edges.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm like, okay, that one didn't work.
Yeah. No, for sure, for sure. So, yeah, I was painting with, in the beginning, I had a very tough relationship with oil paints. I am not a patient person. Anyone who knows me knows this, and so it's not a virtue of mine, and, I I couldn't wait, like, when you're working in oils, real oils, you have to wait, like, 5 days or more sometimes. It depends how thick the paint is, and you can't go in before that time or you actually take it off and create a hole that you can never fix. I don't care what anybody says, it's never fixable. And because it's almost like a stain, right? You can't get rid of it. And so I was very frustrated. I was working with Winston Newton's fast drying oils, for the lack of a better term, which was like
Oh, okay.
24 to 48 hours instead of, a week. But, still wasn't fast enough, so I started doing, like, 3, 4, 5 paintings at a time so I could finish that layer and then go to the next one, and then the next one, and the next one. So, that was working for me because by the time I got back to the original, it was ready. So, yeah, but I'm with you, like, sometimes things aren't happening right, and you get so frustrated, you just wanna, take the canvas outside and beat it to death. And, sometimes I turn them upside down to get a different perspective because 'cause I'm like, "What am I not seeing here?" And I talked in other, interviews about I keep them in my living room too, so while I'm sitting there and they're a problem child for me, I'm just, looking at it all the time and then sometimes when you're relaxed or not thinking about it and you just look at it and you're like, "Oh, I could do it this way. Why didn't I ever think of that?" And it just comes to you because you're decompressing from the rigidity of having to fix it, I guess is a better term, but, yeah, I mean, we all go through that. What do you do when have you ever had, a creative block before? I'd love to talk about that.
Well, like I said, I take a lot of photos. I'm a big hiker. I love hiking, and my travels are all hiking to new places. I don't like going to the same place twice because there's too many places in the world to visit. And so I am an avid hiker, and so I always have so many photographs. And back then, I had my 35 millimeter camera, which was film,
Mm,
and you just never knew. But now, I can take pictures everywhere on my phone or on my camera, and just I can take a million. It's not like, okay, I have 36 on this roll now, and so I can take a million. So I have so much that I would like to paint.
mm,
And so for those, it's not hard. Now, the abstracts, like I just did one, and it takes 3 weeks for my abstracts to dry, the acrylic
yeah.
abstracts, believe it
Yep.
or not, because there's so much paint on them. And like I just did one that I don't like, and it's like, okay, I don't like it. Well, I started turning it, and I meant it to be horizontal, but now I like it vertically. And
Yeah.
so turning it, and also I'm going to go back into it and add a lot more to it, which I don't usually do with my abstracts. I do it and then
That's
it's
it.
done.
Yeah.
But this one, I'm going to go back in and I'm going to do a lot more hand painting into it and just not allow the flow of the paint because I wasn't liking it. But one thing that you touched on with abstracts, you said we talked about turning them and things.
Mhm.
I hate um, wiring my abstracts.
Oh,
Because what if a client likes it a
likes it a
different
different way.
direction? What if
Yeah,
they
that's
like it
true.
horizontally? What if they like it vertically? What if they like it upside down compared to me wanting it right side
Right side
up?
up. Yep. Mhm.
And so, like, I just hung a show last night of abstract work, and it's like, it's so difficult for me to wire them because what if they wanted a different direction?
Yeah.
And that doesn't give that option to me. And
Right.
so it's like one I did one way and for my son, and he hung it the opposite direction in the house. And I was like, okay, that's fine. Like,
Right. Right, right.
because I felt like it needed to be flowing downward and he
Mhm.
liked it coming upward. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, that works that way too. So
Yeah, I love it when people see things that you don't in your pieces. I've had that happen with my abstracts too. Like, one of my friends was like, "It looks like a Fibonacci, sequence," and I was like, "Wow, way to pull out the nerd terms," you know? Like, I did not see that, but I understand why you see it that way, And it's just funny what people see in what you're doing. I love to hear those stories because a lot of times, it has nothing to do with me. It's just what, they've lived and what their likes are and what they're attracted to. And it's just neat. I just find it interesting. Yeah,
but
go ahead.
isn't that what we want as an artist?
Yes, I
We want
do.
that so badly as
I
an artist.
do. I
I'll
want
never forget, I was in a gallery, had my work, we shared space with another artist, and somebody called me and they said they were coming in to buy um, an oil pastel called Vienna Vineyard.
mm,
And I was dealing with a customer when they had come in. So that customer left, and I went back into where my artwork was, and that client is standing there in front of an oil painting crying. And was like, okay, you want them to have that emotion. You want them to be into that. And but then I was like, what do I do with this person standing in front of my art
right.
crying?
Right.
But you want to connect. That's connection is
It's the
so
key.
important.
Yeah.
And Same with writing. I love writing long descriptions on my artwork, and because that's what connected her with it.
That's
Because
right.
she was reading about it and reading where it came from out of my heart, and she just stood there crying.
Yeah.
And so there's so many places that I show, it's like your name and the name of the painting and the price, and you don't get that
The
same
story. Yeah.
experience and that
Yeah.
story
Yeah.
behind the piece
No,
of
that's a
artwork.
really good point for our audience. So those artists out there, listen up. We're talking about some good stuff here. Um, I think it would be beneficial to have your story and the painting story along with it. Now you really have something for them to kind of relate to as well. So if you could make that happen in a gallery, display or something like that, that would, I think, help to sell. That's the name of the game. I mean, we want them to connect, but we also want them to buy. So, helps to sell in an authentic way. So, I think that's a really great point. So, I have a question I love to ask everyone. What is your favorite creation story to date? It could be funny, ambitious, meaningful, like, even if you wanna share. I know you've shared a couple and, about students and things, so I just love to ask that question, like, do you have any favorite creation story that you'd like to share?
Creation stories from teaching or NFTs or
Whichever you wanna pick,
people
whatever
in the
you like.
NFT
Yeah, I know
world.
you've shared some good ones already, so I almost didn't ask the question because 'cause I'm like, "Ah, she shared some already." Yeah.
So the NFT world, that is a whole different ball game, and it is so wonderful because you go into in order to sell NFTs, you go into these spaces called shill spaces where you talk about your artwork, and you literally have just you really want to shill within 3 minutes because there could be hundreds in that room, and a lot of people want to share their work. And so you don't want to take up enough time. You don't want to drag it out. It's your elevator pitch, right?
Right.
Your
Yeah,
elevator pitch. Everybody needs to have an elevator pitch for
for
sure.
sure.
And so I go into these spaces and I introduce myself, being a Christian artist, and talk about my work and the inspiration behind it. But you got to do it in 3 minutes. And it's great when the host of the space asks more questions,
Yeah.
because if you hook them in your 3 minute speech, they're going to want to know more. They're going to want to know more and more. And I had just minted, that means it goes on the blockchain.
Right, right. For those of
I
you who
had,
don't know what we're talking about, it just means you when you mint an NFT, it's like creating it and then
right,
it goes on the blockchain, keeps it from being stolen or resold without you knowing about it. But yeah, if you want to go look
exactly.
at it, look it up, everybody.
By the
I'll-
way, it's your best copyright, by the way. If you're
yeah, for
thinking
sure.
about copyright, if it's minted on the blockchain, it's there forever with your stamp on it. And so you don't have to worry about copyright or
That's right.
plagiarism or anything like that, because you own the rights to it. Even if it sells to somebody else, the creator's name is on it. And if they sell it to somebody else, you get royalties on that. So
Yeah.
you always know where your artwork is with NFTs, and that's a great thing.
Yeah.
This man started asking me about my work and started, he was relating to my artwork and started asking me about it. And it was so beautiful because it was one of my covered bridges, and he related to it with his mother. His mother used to take him to these places, with covered bridges, and the time that he spent with his mother.
Aw.
And the whole creative process, we talked about the creative process about my realistic artworks, and he just dove deeper and deeper and deeper into meaning behind it.
Hmm.
And that's what you want to do. You want to touch their souls. You want to touch them where they're at. You want your paintings to relate to them.
Mm.
And like I said, I travel a lot, and so my paintings are from all over the world most of the time. And, he didn't know where this covered bridge was from, but he asked the questions and he related to it. Even though it was from North Carolina, he had never been to North Carolina, but it related to him.
Right.
And
From
in
the
the end, he
show.
bought that NFT.
Oh.
And then I sent him a print to go with it for his mother.
Oh, that's
So,
amazing.
so it's the whole creative process right now is such an amazing thing, especially when it comes to work in NFTs and connecting with people. And the galleries really need to get on board with this connection process because
Yeah.
that's what it's all about. It's no longer keeping the artist away from the collectors. The collectors want to know and they want to relate to it.
Yeah.
So on X Twitter, you can relate that way because you have the point of contact with people and speaking to people. Now some spaces I go in, they don't want anything to do with me.
Yeah.
That's
And
okay too. You have
yeah,
to understand you are not, artwork is subjective
that's right. And
and
the
you
way
want
they
to
wanted
relate to them on that topic.
yeah, and they went the way they want it to be delivered, whether they want you close to them or not is really, each is custom. I had a buyer who wanted me to install the piece in their home and like have dinner with them and sit down and talk to them about it. So
Nice.
I had an assistant at the time and I said, "Okay, I guess we're going to this guy's house to put this painting on the wall." And I had never done it before, so I was just like, I don't know what to expect, and, it was a lovely, lovely time, and, really honored because he had a lot of really well-known artists on his walls, and, he was jazzed about, my future, and, just a great conversation. He wanted to learn more about, what I did in art and how I came to be, as an artist, so, and he got all the stories because it was over dinner, so, yeah, it was great, but yeah, I agree with you that people want the experience. I think of it as an experience because they don't just want to buy a dry piece of art online. I think some people do that, but most people who want to buy a high level piece of art is what I'm going to say there is most people want to know who the artist is, what the story is. I mean, even if they do buy it online, but you're providing all that information that's, really resonates with them, then, all the better. So I think we all have to be good stewards as artists to make sure that our stories are out there for the piece and for us as individuals. Yeah. Go ahead.
Right. And we need to change that narrative on our websites too. I
Yeah.
had a website that I loved, by the way, and it but it didn't tell my story the way it needed to be told. And I was a guest speaker at Oral Roberts University,
Mm,
and I met a web designer there. And she looked at my website and she said, "It is a beautiful website. It shows your artwork well, but it doesn't tell your story."
yeah.
And so they were a company that the first thing they do with their clients is talk to them about their story, their hows, their whys, their what they're doing. And the product is secondary
Right.
in making that website because their whole point is you need to connect
Yep.
right, right away, soon as, and because everybody's using their phones nowadays too. And you need to connect right away with that first impression about
Yep.
your story and who you
Yeah.
are.
No, for sure. I think that's absolutely right because whenever I'm at shows, that's what everybody wants to talk to me about is me. How did I become an artist? What inspired me to paint that painting? What does it mean to me? They want all the details. How long did it take? What did you do it with? They want everything and because they're investing too and they, wanna be able, in my mind, to tell their family and friends that they met the artist and here's the story behind it, and it's something of pride that they can put on their wall. So, yeah, I think that's very, very good point that hasn't come up yet in any of my interviews, so thank you for that. And I think I'm going to end it on that high note. So thank you so much for your time today. For all those listening, I'll put all of Bonnie's contact information and her site and socials on the description. Do you have any events coming up that you want to tell anyone about? It's okay if you don't. I just thought I'd ask.
I don't have any events coming up. Like I said, I just put a group show at a coffee house in Wake
Yep.
Forest Coffee Company. And another thing for your artists is join groups, connect with
Yes.
people, join your local community groups,
Yeah.
and just meet people, and you will learn so very, very much from each other. I
Yeah.
mean, artists are the most giving people in the
Oh,
world.
absolutely. Especially
And
around here. Everybody's been so welcoming. Yeah, no, it's wonderful.
yes,
Yeah.
and you just connect with people
Yeah.
and just start connecting with artists, and then you'll learn how to connect with collectors also, because they will let you know, where they're showing their work and what they're doing and things like that. And so that's what I'm focusing on right now more than anything, is connecting with people. And I've just gone since I met you, actually,
Yeah.
I have joined 3 new groups.
Oh, wow.
And it has been wonderful because you have places to show. You want to get your artwork out there. Don't worry about having it in a fancy gallery or whatever. You want to meet people where they're at.
Yeah.
And QR codes is the way to go
Yeah.
now. QR,
Yeah.
put your QR code on
Everything.
everything.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, that's a good point too. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It was lovely speaking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was just an honor to be
Yeah.
on here with you.
Thank you. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Feel free to nominate yourself or someone you know as our next guest. Thank you for being a part of our creative community. Stay inspired and keep shining bright.